Welcome to Design Notes, the show in which we find out how the games you love get onto your table. In this week's show, I speak to the designer of Mr. Jack and King Domino, Bruno Cathala. We talk about his early years in game design and winning the Spiel des Jahres, among many other things. If you have any comments, please feel free to pop them in the box below. I hope you enjoy the show. So, I'm here with a legend of French game design, Bruno Cathala. Bruno, welcome to the show and thanks for giving over your time.
It's a pleasure for me to be there.
So, my first question is the question I ask everybody, and please don't feel embarrassed and try and be as honest as possible. So, when did you know you were good at what you do?
I'm a little embarrassed, but frankly speaking, even if today I've been published so many times, I'm not sure to be good. I just do what I like, what I love. But some signs give me some confidence on myself. Okay, and the first thing was after my first playtesting session with my first prototype. Immediately after the first playtesting sessions, my playtester asked to play again and again and again. So it begins to tell me something that maybe I had something to do. It was not wrong. And then 2 weeks later, I had the first contact with a publisher. And immediately after their first playtesting session, they say they were okay to do it. So it was very special for me, and it gave me confidence enough to go on.
Yeah, so you published you published a game, and then you published 2 more games in the same year when you first started. Does game design come easy to you, or is it a lot of work to get a game finished?
No, for sure, it's a lot of work. But the sparkling idea comes very easily. In fact, it comes at a time when you don't think about games, when you do something else. When I do something else, when I take a shower, when I'm riding my bike, when I'm driving, I have this sparkling idea, and then it's work to transform it to something which is really playable.
And how often do you have... So they always say that the artist's journey starts off, you feel very excited, and then you have moments where you think, I am talentless, I am worthless, and this is terrible. Is that the same with you? Do you have moments in every game design where you just think, what am I doing as a game designer? I'm a complete imposter.
In fact, I never asked me that kind of questions, because I'm not doing games to get my life, to win my life. I'm just creating games because it's something which I have inside, which is important to me. And it's kind of selfish attitude, in fact. I'm always working on the games I want to play myself. So as far as it's important to me, I don't care about that kind of feeling, in fact. I do what I have to do for me, and then I try to share them with the most people as possible, first publishers and then the gamers.
And so, as a result of that then, what is your attitude to your playtesters? How do you interact with your playtesters, and how important are they to your reiterations of games?
It's very important to me to make my own games and not my playtester games. So that means that since the beginning, and it's still the case today, I'm always participating to the playtesting sessions, always. Because I want always to compare my own feeling with the feedbacks I can have at the end of a playtesting sessions. And the main job of a game designer is to identify inside all the feedbacks he will have What is really important and what you have to take into considerations to correct it or to improve the game, and what you have absolutely not to take into account, what you have to immediately forget. Not because it's a bad idea, but because it will lead the game to something different, which could be good for sure, but which is not your game. And I want to create my games.
So France is the nation of the auteur, Godard and people like this. Do you see yourself as an auteur when it comes to your game designs?
It's difficult to say because I think that that kind of thing for me it's to the people who play my games to make names in that kind of path, in fact. So like I was explaining, I do what is important for me, and I am an author, an artist, or just something more mechanical. In fact, I don't care.
And so, what was the journey that got you into game design? Because before you were you worked in physics and science, and then you got into game design. What was the process that got you there?
It comes from a long time ago, before I had a real job, in fact. The journey which makes me going into game design was when I was 20. Some friends of my parents gave me a new French magazine, which was named Jeux et Stratégie, Games and Strategy. And I discovered at that time a world I had no idea before, the world of gaming, because at this time I knew only Risico, Monopoly, and abstract games like chess, Go, Othello, etc. But modern games, I had no idea of it was just existing, and it passionated me immediately. And I bought a first game, which was Fief, which is still published today. And I discovered that this game was published because his game designer won a game design contest. And for the first time of my life, I discovered that there were people inventing games. I never thought of that before. And I was so surprised, so happy with this game that I promised myself when I was 20 that one day I will create my own game and I will win this contest and I will be published.
And did you win? Obviously, you got published, but did you win the contest?
Yeah, 20 years later. That means after that, I promised that to me, but I had no idea how to make a game. I had no time, and I just kept that in mind. And for years, I was only a gamer, buying games, teaching them to my friends, etc. And this was a way for me to feed my head with all of this. And 20 years later, at one time, I decided it was a good time for me. And in 2006, I think, my game, which was Du Ballet in French, won the game contest and was published. And then he won also the As d'Or in Cannes.
And so, in music, musicians will play scales. In sport, players will do drills and practice the fundaments of the sport. Is there anything that you do as a game designer to keep yourself sharp and ready for when that idea comes?
There is today what I do in that field is always staying connected to the actuality of games. That means I'm not playing so many games that I would like to because I have not time enough, because developing my games takes me a lot of time for sure. But I'm looking for videos. I'm reading rules. So even if I'm not playing the games, I'm reading rules. So that's a way to make these scales. But before that, before becoming the game designer I am today, I think that the best way to train yourself is to modify the games you have at home. And I began like this. And I always, when I was playing some games, I say, the game is good, but it would be better if you do that, etc. So I always make some little adjustments of little variants of the game I was buying before. And then I decided one day that it was enough to me to do my own game.
When I talk to my friends about games and things, we always talk about the two great gaming nations, and that's Germany and America. We always say that they're the two sort of pillars, the two styles of game. Firstly, what is the French gaming scene like, and how has it changed over your time involved with it?
I think that the French gaming scene is something which is exactly in between American style and German style. That means that we love to have a real mechanical core which is strong and works well, but we also like that the story inside the game is deep and really connected with the game mechanism. And moreover, it's very important to us that the art which supports the games also fits well with the mechanical aspects and the story aspects. And I think that this is probably a specificity of the French game scene, in my opinion.
Yeah, it always seems to me that if you look at the French game companies, the production is always very, very good. The components are great and the art is always fantastic. I mean, how important are those elements in games for the players to become immersed?
For me, it's essential. The first contact you have with a game is the cover. When you enter in a game shop, the first thing you see, it's the cover of the game. So it has to tell you a story immediately. And then when you play the game, your game experience has to fit well with what you can expect when you saw the cover of the game. So all of this for me is very, very important. And I like to be involved in that process with the publisher. It's his responsibility, he has the final cut, but I like to be considered as a partner for that. And if I have a choice, my choice will always be to work with a company who will let me some input in that way.
And have you always had that happen, or have you had some companies that have just said, "Oh, thank you for the design. We'll see you in 12 months"?
So, some of them, but since the beginning, I always managed to do that, even if the publisher doesn't know. That means that, for the example, is my first games. The publisher didn't want me to be involved in that process, so I managed to find the contact with the artist, and I worked with it directly without the publisher knowing.
And so, you've said that you get your ideas when you're not thinking about games, when you're in the shower, when you're taking a walk, or something like that. How do you get from that idea in your head to the game on the table? What is your process?
Alors, my process is maybe specific, and it comes from my former work, I think, from my former job. That means that when I have a sparking idea, I spend a lot of time doing nothing. That means just thinking. Because it's possible for me to imagine game situation, to project what the game could be. And I play games or part of games inside my head as if I was 2, 3, or 4 around the table. And as long as I can imagine situations which are not good, or which will create some bugs, etc., I'm thinking again and again how to correct that, how to modify the ID, etc. And this can take me a lot of time. Like sometimes some days, some weeks, some months. It depends on the game. And I'm working. I'm building a first prototype only when the ideas are clear enough into my head. And that means that in many of the situations, my first prototype works. It's not perfect. You have to improve it. You have to balance it, but it works. And this comes from my former job because I was working as an engineer in material sciences. I was working in research and development. And all the experiments we had to do were so expensive that first we had to justify why we wanted to make that experiment. And the physical laws are well known. So all what you can project, you won't pay to have a result. So, and I'm still working this way on my games, in fact. And the second thing comes from me. In fact, how to say, I don't like to do twice the job. So the less I can do, the less I do. So all what I can do, which don't lead to something I have to wait to go, to waste. Okay, so I prefer to go directly.
And so, what would you say is a good game? What should a good game do to the player?
First, for me, games is a question of social relations between the players. So this is very important to me, and which is the most important is the game experience you have when you play the game. And for me, a good game is a game you want to play again and again. And one of my feeling is that it's a question of frustration. That means that if the game system leads you to too big frustrations, you don't want to play a game. And you can be very frustrated if it's too easy or if it's too difficult. And the best balance is when the game leads you to exactly that limit. When you win, you can be proud of yourself because you can think that you have been clever. And when you lose, just you don't have chance enough. But you were so close.
And how important is chance and randomness in games? Is it important that everyone has a chance to win?
It depends, frankly speaking, it depends of what game experience you want to create. And depending on the game, my answer will be different. For example, if I'm building, which is the case today, a pure two-player abstract game, it's very easy. You don't have to have any luck factor inside. But if I want to create a game experience for families, for any kind of players, etc., you have to input a mix of secret informations and open informations in order that it's not always the same player who wins. The best player has to win more than the other ones, but everyone has to get to have one chance. It's the same. For example, if you go to play chess with Kasparov, I don't think that it will be really present, so you don't want to do it. So for a game, it's the same. If you go to a table to play with other people, but you're sure that in 1 hour you will lose, why to play? It's also one of the reasons of the success of cooperative games.
And so you've designed games that have a wide breadth of themes. And I think about something like Mr. Jack. How did you come up with the idea of that game? Are you fascinated by Victorian England and Jack the Ripper?
Absolutely not. No, but the story of this game design, it's easy for me to explain. In fact, we were in Festival de Cannes, for the game festival, with Ludovic Maublanc, my co-designer. And it was our first time, I think, or second time in Cannes. And we had no money, so we were sleeping in the house of another designer, which is Christophe Bollinger. And we had to share a couch to sleep. And it was 4 o'clock in the night, okay? And it was impossible for us to sleep. And suddenly Ludovic said me, "Hey, do you want us to try to do a game together?" I say, "Okay, yes, but do you have an idea?" And he answered me, "Yes, it's light and darkness." And I answer, "And?" He answered, "That's all. I just want to create a game where something could be possible into the light, but not in the darkness, and something possible into the darkness, etc." And then we began to brainstorm, starting with this idea of light and darkness. And immediately we tried to imagine what kind of story we could have. First idea which came was something with vampires, okay? But we were not that exciting with this idea. And then we thought about a criminal hiding himself in the darkness, etc. And immediately we thought about Jack the Ripper. And then we study a lot the story of Jack the Ripper, and then we built the game. But it's not because we were fascinating of Victorian England.
So, you mentioned there that you designed Mr. Jack with another designer. You've worked a lot with Bruno Cathala, you've worked with Antoine Bowser. Firstly, why? Because I guess if you design with another designer, you get paid half the money. So firstly, why do you like to design with other people? And secondly, what is it about your way of working that makes those partnerships work well?
Yeah. First, I'm not designing games to get money. So sharing the incomes is not the point. Then creating means doubting. And doubting with someone else, it's much more comfortable than doubting alone. This is the second point. The third point is that I began to create my own games quite late. That means that I was 40 probably. And that means that before beginning that, I thought a lot. And for a book writer, people say that a book writer writes quite the same book all his life. The stories are quite different, but what is inside the game, the book, comes again and again. And I was quite sure that it's the same for the game designer. And my purpose was not to create one game, it was to create games. And I immediately thought that the best way for me to reinvent myself was to alternate solo game design and game design with partner. And maybe this facility to work with partners also comes with my former job, because when you are working in research and development, you have your own studies, but you are not working alone. You always need to work with people which are more which have other skills than yours, etc. And you are working in team. And so I like to alternate solo design and working in team. And it's important for me because it forced me to go in such direction I will never have gone alone, for sure. And in fact, it feeds me a lot, and it's really important for me.
And so I need now, because to give context, we're recording the day after the nominees for the Spiel des Jahres have been announced, and you've been nominated for the Kinderspiel des Jahres this year. Yeah. You've won the Spiel des Jahres twice with King Domino and Shadows over Camelot. How important are these kind of awards to you?
it's a gift. It's a gift. It's not a race for me. That means that I'm never working on a game thinking of any award. But when it comes, for me, it's a surprise. Frankly speaking, yesterday, I was working online with a publisher playtesting games with Tabletopia, and I began to receive some messages saying, "Hey, congratulations!" And I said, "Congratulations, but for what?" Because I didn't know that the nomination were yesterday, and I had no expectations. I never have any expectations. So when it comes, it's a gift, it's a surprise, and I feel happy for sure. I feel honored, and yes, it's I feel lucky because there are so many games. So and you have only 3 which are nominated. So always it could have been another game. So yes, I feel honored and lucky.
And could you tell us something about the game that's been nominated? It's a kids' version of King Domino, if I'm right.
Yes, it's but it could look strange that it's this game won the Asdor and now is nominated for Kinderspiel. But in fact, the only thing it has in common with King Domino is that it plays with dominoes. But all the other things are different. The way you select the dominoes, the way you connect them, the way you get your points, etc., are very, very different. So it's 2 different games using dominoes, one for families, one for kids. And what I think can make the difference with this game, Dragomino, is that it's really dedicated to young children, and after 1 or 2 games, they can play alone without having their parents. And I think that it's really one of the strongest of this game.
So let's go on to the future then. You're a designer that's very prolific. You designed a lot of games. What do you have coming out in the next couple of years that we can enjoy?
Very soon, I will have Sobek for 2 players. So Sobek was published 10 years ago, and it was not published for a long time, but 10 years after, we still have people asking where I can find it, etc., etc. So I thought it was a good idea to come again, but it has been rebuilt and specifically for 2 players. And frankly speaking, I think that we can be successful with this one. I will have also King Domino Origins. That means it's a new King Domino. It's a standalone with actions taking place into prehistoric area with some volcanoes, etc. And it's like a kind of King Domino, including the expansion, The Court, I published, which you can find in print and play on internet. I will also have Trek 12 Amazonia, a new standalone when you go exploring Amazonia, etc., with a lot of dangers. Okay, you can play online today to Insert, which is my abstract game for 2 players. You can play it on Board Game Arena. Don't find it. Don't look to in the shops because there is no physical version yet. I'm looking for a publisher for this one, but you can immediately play it on Board Game Arena. And next year I will have a biggest game which is named Orichalk, which action taking place with Atlantids people, so trying to find a new island before their island being completely under the sea, and some secret projects.
So when you think back to that 20-year-old who, played Thief and then thought, I want to design a game and I want to get it published and I want to win this award, to what degree do you think you've fulfilled your ambitions as a designer?
100%, 200%, 500%. Frankly speaking, I would never have imagined that today it will not be my job. It's just my life. Each game is a part of me. In fact, it's not. it's something which is really like a necessity for me to do that.
So I've got two more questions then. So you're at a convention, and it's the evening, and you go out for dinner, and you walk by a table, and you hear some gamers talking, and they mention your name. So you go into a corner and you listen in on what they're saying. What do you hope they're saying about you?
I just hope that they understand that each of my games, even if none of them is perfect, I always been built with all my sincerity.
And one last question then. Why is gaming good?
For me, gaming is good because it's only a question of relationship. In fact, you are not playing alone, even if it's possible to play alone. But we are making games to play with other people, and it's a way to improve this social network. For me, one of the reasons I'm creating games is because I'm shy, and creating games is a way for me people coming to me. If you come to me, I'm not shy, but it will be impossible for me to go to you, in fact. So it's a question of social relationship. And how to say, you know someone better in 1 hour of gaming than in 1 year of conversation. So because when you play, you are yourself. You don't hide yourself under a character you want to show to the other people. So, no mask.
Brilliant. Well, Bruno Cathala, thank you ever so much for giving over your time.
It was a pleasure, sure.